The low, grey sky over the Bulge country of Normandy in July 1944 offered no comfort to the men of the U.S. 29th Infantry Division. Ahead of them lay a sunken road, lined with centuries-old hedgerow stents, tangled walls of shrubbery and earth that were effectively natural fortifications. From these hidden positions, the German Wehrmacht had established what they believed to be an impregnable defense. Their doctrine was built around the MG42, a machine gun with a terrifying rate of fire that sounded like tearing canvas, capable of pinning down an entire platoon in seconds. To the German commanders, the American infantry squad seemed undergunned. They lacked a belt-fed light machine gun comparable to the MG42. Yet, as the order to advance came, a different sound erupted from the American line. It was not the rapid buzz of the German gun, but a slow, rhythmic, heavy thumping. Chug-chug-chug-chug. It was the sound of the Browning automatic rifle bar. In the hands of a single rugged infantryman, this 20-pound weapon became the sledgehammer that cracked the German defensive nut. It did not rely on stationary dominance. It relied on aggressive movement. The bar gunner didn't just suppress the enemy. He moved with the assault, raining .306 armor-piercing rounds through the thick cover, turning the impregnable hedgerows into splintered traps for the defenders. This weapon, a relic of the First World War, had been repurposed to revolutionize squad-level tactics, transforming the American infantrymen from a static target into a fluid, overwhelming force of fire and maneuver, the genesis of a hybrid from trenches to mobile warfare. To understand how the BAR broke German defenses in World War II, one must first understand the identity crisis of the weapon itself. Designed by the legendary John Moses Browning in 1917, the M1918 BAR was originally conceived for a war that was already ending. The tactical problem of World War I was no man's land, how to cross a field swept by machine gun fire. Browning's solution was the concept of walking fire. The idea was that soldiers would advance in a line, firing the bar from the hip using a special cup on their belt to support the stock, suppressing the enemy trenches until they were close enough to charge. However, by 1941, the static horror of trench warfare had been replaced by the Blitzkrieg war was now about speed, mechanization, and small unit maneuver. The U.S. Army found itself in a difficult position. The Germans had developed the Einheitsmaschinengewehr universal machine gun concept, culminating in the MG34 and MG42. These were belt-fed weapons that could serve as both heavy static guns and portable squad automatic weapons. The US had no equivalent. They had the heavy tripod-mounted M1919 Browning for static defense and the semi-automatic M1 Garand for riflemen. The gap in between the need for portable, automatic squad firepower fell squarely on the shoulders of the BAR. It was an imperfect fit on paper. The BAR had a small 20-round magazine compared to the German 50-round belts. Its barrel was fixed and could not be quickly changed when it overheated. It was heavy, difficult to control, and full automatic fire. And the M1918A2 version issued in World War II had a bipod that many soldiers found cumbersome. Yet, despite these flaws, it possessed a unique characteristic that would prove decisive. It was a true automatic rifle, not a light machine gun. It could be shouldered, aimed, and fired by one man as fast as he could run. The anchor of the squad, a new tactical doctrine the revolution the BAR brought, was not in its mechanical superiority, but in how it reshaped the American infantry squad. By 1944, the standard U.S. Army squad consisted of 12 men, a squad leader, an assistant squad leader, a bar team gunner, assistant, an ammo bearer, and rifleman. In theory, and increasingly in practice, the entire squad maneuvered around the BAR. It was the base of fire. When a squad made contact with the enemy, the rifleman would peel off to the flanks, while the bar gunner moved to a position of dominance. His job was to hammer the German position, not necessarily to kill every defender, but to keep their heads down. The heavy .3006 rounds, identical to those used in the M1 Garand but fired automatically, had immense penetrating power. They could punch through brick walls, sandbags, and the heavy timber of German bunkers. This created a tactical dilemma for the Germans. German doctrine dictated that their squad fought around their MG42. If the MG42 fired, the rest of the German squad supported it. But the American doctrine was the inverse. The BAR fired to support the movement of the riflemen. This meant that while the German gunner was often stationary and easy to locate, despite his terrifying firepower, the American BAR gunner was constantly displacing. Fire and maneuver became the mantra. The BAR gunner would unleash a burst, forcing the Germans to duck. In those few seconds of silence, the American riflemen would rush forward 10 yards. Then they would lay down covering fire with their M1 Garands, while the BAR gunner hauled his weapon to a new, closer position. It was a terrifying game of leapfrog that relentlessly closed the distance, punching through the hedgerow. The true test of this tactic came in the Bulge of Normandy. The Germans had turned the hedgerows into a killing ground. They sighted their machine guns to fire diagonally across the fields, creating interlocking kill zones. A standard infantry assault into the middle of a field was suicide. The BAR revolutionized the solution to this problem through suppression by portability. Because the BAR did not require a tripod or a crew to set up, a gunner could crawl through the drainage ditches alongside the hedges. He could pop up, fire a full 20-round magazine into a suspected German machine gun nest, and drop back down before the return fire could locate him. One famous tactic developed in July 1944 involved the Reiner tank Shermans equipped with tusks to cut through the hedges working in concert with BAR squads. The tank would punch a hole in the hedge, and before the dust settled, the BAR gunner would step through the breach, spraying the corners of the next field. This immediate high-volume fire stunned the defenders long enough for the rest of the squad to pour through. The BAR's caliber was vital here. The German MP-40 submachine guns, firing 9mm pistol rounds, were useless against the earthen embankments. Even the MG42 had trouble penetrating the thickest root systems, but the BAR's .3 U06 round could cut through the vegetation and the earth. Veteran accounts speak of BAR gunners literally sawing down trees or collapsing sandbag walls to expose the enemy hiding behind them. The German perspective, the automatic rifle shock. For the average German grenadier, the American infantry tactics were confusing and frustrating. They were used to fighting armies that relied on heavy machine guns for their primary firepower, like the Soviets or the British with their Bretons when they faced Americans. They often couldn't identify the machine gunner immediately because the BAR man looked like just another rifleman until he opened fire. German interrogation reports from the war reveal a grudging respect for the volume of fire an American squad could generate. While the MG42 was superior in a static firefight, once the Americans began to maneuver, the BAR's ability to appear on a flank, deliver heavy fire, and disappear was demoralizing. The Germans called the tactic Stoßtrupp shock troop tactics, realizing that every American squad had the independent firepower to act as a stormtrooper unit. However, this effectiveness came at a terrible cost. The Germans quickly learned to prioritize the BAR gunner above all others. If they could kill the man with a heavy automatic rifle, the American squad's offensive momentum would stall. The life expectancy of a BAR gunner in a firefight was often measured in minutes. The human element, the burden of the BAR man. To discuss the history of the BAR without discussing the men who carried it would be incomplete. It was a weapon that demanded physical strength and immense courage. The BAR man carried a load that could cripple a lesser soldier. The weapon itself weighed nearly 20 pounds. The tactical belt had pockets for 12 magazines, each weighing a pound when fully loaded. Many gunners carried additional bandoliers, often holding 400 to 500 rounds of ammunition, plus grenades and a sidearm. Because of the weight and the high casualty rate, the BAR was often assigned to the biggest man in the squad or the newest. It was a rite of passage. Yet, despite the burden, it was a beloved weapon. In a chaotic firefight, where rain and mud jammed lesser weapons, the BAR was renowned for its reliability. It would cycle in the freezing snow of the Ardennes and the humid heat of the Pacific. Veterans often discarded the official Army manual modifications. The bipod, added by ordnance officers who wanted to turn it into a light machine gun, was frequently thrown away by troops in the field. It added weight and snagged on underbrush. Soldiers reverted to John Browning's original vision, a shoulder-fired assault weapon. They learned to feather the trigger, firing single shots or double taps to conserve ammunition, only unleashing full auto bursts when an enemy rush was imminent. One of the most profound examples of the BAR's impact occurred during the Battle of the Bulge. As unprepared American units were overrun by German panzer grenadiers, scattered squads were often left isolated in the snow. In these Alamo stands, the BAR became the pivot point of survival. A single BAR gunner firing from a concealed position could separate German infantry from their tanks, forcing the infantry to seek cover and leaving the tanks blind and vulnerable to bazooka teams, breaking the Siegfried Line. As the Allies pushed into Germany, they encountered the Siegfried Line west wall, a system of pillboxes, dragon's teeth, and bunkers. Here, the BAR proved its worth in bunker-busting tactics. The standard procedure for taking a pillbox involved a dangerously close coordination of fire. The BAR gunner would be tasked with firing directly at the embrasures, the firing slits of the bunker. The goal wasn't to penetrate the concrete, but to force the German gunners inside to close their shutters or duck. While the BAR hammered the slit, a combat engineer or rifleman would sprint forward with a satchel charge or flamethrower. This required nerves of steel from the BAR gunner. He had to stand his ground, often exposed, and keep firing while enemy rounds snapped past him. If he stopped firing to reload or take cover, his teammate moving toward the bunker would be cut down. The trust between the squad and the BAR man was absolute. This tactic cracked the Siegfried Line one pillbox at a time, dismantling a defense system that Hitler had boasted would stand for 1,000 years. Limitations and adaptations. It is important to acknowledge that the BAR was not a perfect weapon. Its 20-round magazine was its greatest Achilles heel. A soldier could empty the magazine in under 2.5 seconds of continuous fire. This required a constant discipline: fire, a burst, move, reload, fire, a burst. It prevented the spray and pray mentality that later high-capacity machine guns would encourage. Furthermore, the lack of a quick-change barrel meant the gun could overheat to the point where the barrel would glow cherry red and the rifling would be stripped out. Soldiers learned to carry canteens of water not just for drinking but to pour over the barrel in emergencies, or to urinate on the gun to cool it down during desperate defenses. To compensate for these limitations, U.S. tactics evolved. By late 1944, many units began scrounging extra bars. The official table of organization and equipment TO&E allocated 1 BAR per squad. However, Combat experience showed that 2 or even 3 were necessary to match the firepower of a German squad. Marines in the Pacific officially adopted a 3-fireteam squad, each with a BAR, tripling their automatic firepower. In Europe, army squads would often scavenge BARs from wounded comrades or supply depots, creating heavy squads that could unleash a torrent of fire that stunned German defenders used to counting shots and timing their reloads. The legacy of the BAR, the Browning automatic rifle, was a transitional weapon, a bridge between the bolt-action rifles of the past and the assault rifles of the future. It was neither a true machine gun nor a true rifle, but something in between. Yet it was precisely this ambiguity that made it revolutionary. By placing a portable man-sized automatic cannon in the hands of a squad member, the U.S. Army democratized firepower. It meant that a squad did not have to wait for heavy weapons support or tanks to take out a machine gun nest. They had the tools to do it themselves. When the smoke cleared over Europe in May 1945, the myth of the impregnable German defense had been shattered. It was broken not just by artillery and air power, but by the relentless, grinding advance of American infantry squads. And at the tip of that spear, usually dirty, exhausted, and carrying a load that would break a mule, was the barman. His weapon's thumping report was the heartbeat of the American advance, a sound that signaled to the entrenched enemy that the line was moving, and nothing was going to stop it.